right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro on a Friday. Glad you could join us. Also broadcasting live on YouTube. Check it out. Our YouTube page is the Vegas Take, so just punch that in there, and you'll find my pretty face anytime you like. A lot going on in the political world. As you know, the Nevada caucuses tomorrow. We're going to find out most likely who's going to win. But joining us on the line right now, her name is Amber Athey. She is the Washington editor for the Spectator, and she joins us right now on the line doing a great job. Amber, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, appreciate it. Why don't we start with the debate? Obviously, you watched the Democratic debate the other night, and I had some strong opinions on it. I think Bloomberg was the big loser. I don't think that Klobuchar had a great debate either, and I thought the big winner was Elizabeth Warren. How did you see it?
Yeah, Elizabeth Warren obviously scored a lot of points by a very effective attack on Mike Bloomberg and his alleged sexism and history of sexual harassment. She hammered him for his non-disclosure agreements with numerous women who have worked for his companies, even repeating some of the nasty things he allegedly said to these women. And he really was unprepared for that line of attack. He had very little defense, only saying that the NDAs were consensual and that he wouldn't let the women out of them. However, I don't think Elizabeth Warren was the big winner. I actually think it was Bernie Sanders. And that's because he managed to escape a lot of attacks from his opponents, despite the fact that he really is the front runner, because they were so focused on Mike Bloomberg. So actually, the effective strategy for these people would have been to actually ignore Bloomberg a little bit more and start hammering Bernie, because he's really their biggest challenger right now. He's leading in Nevada. He won New Hampshire, won the popular vote in Iowa, and is polling nationally the best out of all of the candidates.
That's a good point, and there's no question that Bernie Sanders is the heavy favorite to win this in Nevada, no doubt about that. Let's talk a little bit about Elizabeth Warren and Bloomberg, because as you mentioned, she went after Bloomberg on all these non-disclosures. Now, yesterday she kind of doubled down on it. She's doing a town hall at the Sahara on Las Vegas Boulevard, and she wrote up this contract, or one of her people wrote up a contract to release the women from these NDAs, and she says all Bloomberg has to do is sign it. I would imagine there is absolutely no chance he's going to sign it, but what did you make of that?
Well, I think she obviously got a lot of attention for that stunt during the debate, so it's smart of her to double down. She's been polling pretty poorly over the past several weeks, if not couple of months, and she did try this against Bernie Sanders. You'll remember she accused him of being a secret sexist and of telling her in a private meeting that he did not think a woman could win the presidency. That attack did not work, one, because there was really no proof that he had ever said that. It was a he said, she said. And two, people have a hard time believing that Bernie Sanders is a secret sexist, considering he's championed women for much of his career. But when you look at Mike Bloomberg, there's numerous reports about the dozens on dozens of examples of alleged sexual harassment and making nasty comments to women. So she has a much clearer path there to make this attack against him. It worked out really well for her at the debate. It stands to reason that she should continue doubling down.
One more question about Bloomberg, Amber, because I'm confused about this. Here's a man that has put hundreds of millions of dollars into his campaign, and it seemed like he didn't do 10 minutes of homework. He had to know, and his campaign advisors had to know that they were going to go after him on this debate stage about this stuff. His defense was a joke. I mean, he responds by saying, I was nice to some women, and then his other responses, well, maybe some of these people didn't like some of the jokes I made. That's the best defense that he could come up with. I thought it was an embarrassment.
This is just about as arrogant as you can get as a politician. He thought that because of his history as New York City mayor and the amount of money that he's poured into this debate, that he could skate by with these horrible excuses for some of these things that he said and done. And the bottom line is that just doesn't work unless maybe you're Donald Trump and you respond by attacking back 10 times harder. You can't just have that type of response to these types of allegations. There has to be a real explanation. And clearly Bloomberg thought that he could go into this debate and skate by on his money and on his reputation, and did not prepare for what certainly was going to be a field coming out of the gate to go after him because of his surge in the polls.
I think he's done, Amber. My personal opinion is, even if he has a decent debate next time around, I think he's done. I think most Democrats see that he has no chance of defeating Donald Trump on a debate stage. What do you say to that?
I don't think he's quite dead yet, for the sole reason that He has obviously a ton of national ads. Even before he hit the debate stage, he has been surging in the polls because people think that he could defeat President Donald Trump. But I do think that it damaged him severely, and people are starting to rethink his candidacy. And he'll have to really pull out all of the stops if he wants to be more successful in the future. But at the same time, it seems like it's much of a lesser risk if the Democrats choose another candidate, because Bloomberg has already pledged billions of dollars to whoever the Democratic nominee is. So why not get rid of all of Bloomberg's baggage and just accept his money?
It is funny with a lot of these Democrats, right? They'll get this guy off the stage, but hey, we'll take your money. If you're just joining us, we're speaking with Amber Athey. He does a great job as the Washington editor for The Spectator. Okay, Amber, let me ask you this question. Right now, I mean, you kind of alluded to it already, but right now it's got to be Bernie Sanders that is the favorite that months down the road will be on the stage with Donald Trump. Is that fair to say? And do you still think Joe Biden, don't count him out yet either? Because I thought he had a decent debate the other night.
It certainly seems like Bernie is the current frontrunner. Obviously, a lot of things can happen between now and the time of the convention. Joe Biden has been fading for quite some time now, but he could pick up steam in South Carolina. He obviously has a lot of support among black voters, so that could always be a rebound point for him. But I think, I'm loath to make predictions because at one point Joe Biden was the front runner, then Elizabeth Warren was the front runner, now Bernie Sanders is the front runner. Things in politics change so quickly. It's a bad idea to stake your bets on any one candidate.
All right, Amber, you've been covering the Roger Stone case. I want to get to that. Obviously, we learned that he's going to be receiving up to around 40 months behind bars. And now we learned this story that just came out that at least there is one juror that at least Donald Trump is stating that has been tainted. What can you tell us about that? What can you tell us about the sentence? And do you think that Donald Trump will eventually pardon Roger Stone?
Look, the lead juror in this case had demonstrated a significant anti-Trump bias and had actually retweeted articles about Roger Stone's indictment prior to joining the jury. Now, that's problematic because in an affidavit in court documents, she stated that she was not that familiar with the case and that her bias against Trump would not cloud her judgment. It's really hard to believe, based on the fact that she called Trump the #Klan president, that she would not have some type of animus towards some of his allies. And Roger Stone's legal team made this case to Judge Amy Berman Jackson, and she denied them a mistrial or the opportunity at having a retrial. Now, what we do have here is a revision of the initial recommended sentence, which was up to 9 years. Now he's received just about 40 months, but it still seems like a little bit of a severe sentence for someone who has committed a nonviolent crime and essentially was convicted of exaggerating about certain connections he had to WikiLeaks. The entire thing seems like a politically biased justice system that has gone after someone because of their ties to the president and not because he did anything that was particularly egregious or even really that criminal.
No, listen, I completely agree with you. And I don't know if you'll agree with me on this because these are two separate cases. I personally do not believe that Paul Manafort or Michael Avenatti would be in jail right now as we speak if they somehow were not involved with Trump. Obviously, Manafort, the former campaign manager to Donald Trump, and Michael Avenatti has been going after Donald Trump for decades. I'm not saying they didn't break the law. What I'm saying is if they didn't go, if they weren't associated with the arguably the most powerful man in the world right now, I don't think they would be in jail. Would you add those two in there and put all three in that category?
And you can throw Michael Flynn in there as well.
Right.
All of this stems from the fact that there was a false allegation that the Trump campaign had colluded with Russia.
Right.
That's where all of these Trump allies have been indicted on things like financial crimes, process crimes in the course of the Mueller investigation. And yet at the end of all of it, we found out that there indeed was no evidence that there was collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. So it certainly seems like these people have been unfairly railroaded. Again, did they commit crimes? Yes. But you have to look at the origin of this investigation and question whether or not any of this should have ever been coming to trial in the first place.
No, I agree. I could not agree with you more. Amber, you do a great job over there at The Spectator. Thank you so much for taking your time to join us. Love to have you again down the road. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate that. That's Amber Athey, Washington editor of The Spectator, joining us on the line. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, remember, we've been talking about this, Rush Limbaugh's homophobic comments in regards to Pete Buttigieg. Well, now Pete Buttigieg is responding, and even the president having a private conversation with Rush Limbaugh about those comments. Remember, this is the man he gave the Medal of Freedom Award to. Is he backing Rush Limbaugh? We'll tell you exactly what he said to Rush Limbaugh coming up next. You're listening to The Vegas Take right here on the all-new 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDAR.